Good morning, and this is the morning meeting. I'm Mark Halperin. We're so happy you're here. I mean, really happy. It's not just something I'm reading off of a teleprompter, where every day when we open the window, we can't believe who walks through or really climbs through the window. You walk through a door. Thank you for joining. If you're watching on YouTube, incredible. What technology they have there, right? It's one of the most, I was told YouTube's the second most popular search engine in the world after Bing. I mean, after Google. Thank you for joining. You can watch the program on YouTube to your heart's desire. You can also write stuff in the chat. Do not write junk in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding. The presumption of grace for all. Here on the two-way platform, we've got pretty much the same rules. Peace, love, and understanding. And you can write in the chat, but not junk in the chat. But you've got an additional option, which you can raise your electronic hand, which some have already done. We love new people who've never participated before. First time, long time is one of the favorite things I like to hear. Music to my ears. It's like a Barry Manilow concert. So please, if you've never asked a question before and you're here on the two-way platform, raise your hand. Get in on the conversation. Sean and Dan bursting at the seams to start talking about stuff. Primarily what we want to talk about is this. Put up the Matt Gaetz graphic, which Sean said he didn't want to talk about. Here it is. Matt Gaetz. This is how we're going to warm you two up. Matt Gaetz graphic. Here you go. Sean, you first. What do you think of this?
Interesting. I didn't see that. I didn't see the OAN piece coming. The big announcement, I don't know. I thought he was either going to announce for another office or go to a different outlet, but
little known fact, the founders envisioned that there'd basically be two paths in a wood. One would lead to being the Attorney General of the United States, and one would be being on a television network that almost no one's ever seen. That's how they saw it. Dan, what do you think, Matt Gaetz, OAN?
He looks like the third Blues Brother in that promo. It does give him a perch to fire away.
I normally don't make predictions. I'll make a prediction. That show will never be on. That's my prediction.
Really?
That's my prediction. That show will never be on.
So
I might be wrong.
Say by the end of January, there's not an episode.
I think something will come a cropper. Like I think Trump will call him and say, "Dude, that is not worthy."
I'll take the bet. I'll take the bet.
All right. Let's bet an eggnog, unalcoholic eggnog. All right. Here's the thing. If you've never been on this program before, let's do a little, what do we call it? Housekeeping refresher. I don't know what it's called. This program is based on the network news morning meetings at the big networks, your ABCs, your CNNs, your NBCs. Every morning at about this time, they convene by conference call and or audio only usually, maybe they're video now, I don't even know. And they talk about what's happening that day and then they kick it around. What does it all mean? The surprise twist here, the little O. Henry ending is we take your questions. So you can ask about whatever you want right at the end. They don't do that at the networks because those networks are elitist citadels, closed off, not for the people. They're for the powerful. Okay. So here's what's happening today. Joe Biden, very robust schedule. Okay. At 12:15, we're going to talk about this in a moment. He's giving a speech at the Brookings Institution. Sean, little known fact. How many of my parents have ever worked at the Brookings Institution?
Oh, this is going to be a trick. I would say one.
Two. Both my parents have worked at Brookings, different times. 12:15, he delivers remarks at Brookings on quote unquote his economic playbook. We'll talk about it. 7 o'clock tonight, he hosts a dinner for the Special Olympics athletes in the East Room. 2 o'clock, the White House press secretary briefs. It's almost like they're running the government over there today. Incredible. Kamala Harris, say it with me, in Washington, D.C., where she will receive briefings and conduct internal meetings with staff. These meetings will be closed press. Okay. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, no idea what they're doing today. Maybe they'll do something. Speaker of the House on Capitol Hill and his leadership team, Emmer and the guy from Louisiana, what's his name? Scalise are holding a press conference at 10 o'clock. And then Pete Hegseth continues the rounds, courtesy calls with John Cornyn, Hyde Smith, Daines, and perhaps most significantly all, the gentle lady from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski. All right, gentlemen, you're all warmed up from talking about Matt Gaetz. John, you first. When you think about Trump and Biden and Syria, we saw Donald Trump's Truth Social post saying don't get involved there. Some are reading that as a message to Biden. Do their interests diverge in Syria? In other words, is the stuff Biden wants about Syria that Trump doesn't want, or are they mostly in sync? John Spicer, I ask you.
They are not in sync is the answer.
What are the differences?
I mean, Trump's Truth Social is pretty transparent. He doesn't want to get involved. He has no desire to get in the middle of a quagmire there.
But Biden's not talking about sending U.S. troops on the ground.
No, but
Like,
he
what's
wants
the?
to. But I think that he's a lot closer to getting involved than Trump would ever. So,
But what kind of involvement would you think the Biden team would like to have?
I think they'd like to have as little as possible, but it's on their watch, and this is where they got to be careful. That you've as we talked about yesterday, there are chemical weapons at stake. Israel is trying to shed all signs of their involvement. I mean, like there's a lot of implications, concerns about who they align with. So there's a lot of consequential things that are happening that Biden, by virtue of the fact that he is still president, has to deal with.
Dan,
And Trump has the ability to just be the guy who just doesn't have to. I mean, when you're not president, you don't have to answer the big stuff like this.
Dan,
Yeah, I think they are very similar in that neither wants a headache in the Middle East. Neither wants to have to address a vacuum with multiple players swirling around. Where they may differ too is I think the Biden administration is very worried about Russia trying to kind of maintain its influence, its strategic military presence there. I'm not sure Trump really cares about that. He doesn't want to have to deal with Putin on something like this. But I think they are very aligned. In that it is a problem. They both don't want Israel harmed. You've got, Iraq now may start teetering. And we talked yesterday about Turkey. So I think they are aligned. But if you're Trump, you don't want to have to deal with this to start your new administration.
Right. That's what, yeah. I mean, he does not. He wants Biden to handle this. So when he walks in, it's one less thing on his plate.
what is ALTANF? What is ALTANF? AL-TANF. What is that? ALTANF. Do you guys know what that is?
No.
Maybe I'm mispronouncing it. It's in the United States military base in Syria.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
the small one. Yeah.
When did it start? How long have we had ALTANF?
Do we even? I don't technically. Just to be clear, I'm not sure we technically acknowledge it. I'm just trying to.
Well, it's Wikipedia knows that it exists.
Yeah, no, we do. It's been in the New York Times stories that we have a small, like couple hundred Marines or something there.
It's been there since 2016.
Yeah, during the Civil War, they put, yeah.
You think Donald Trump wants to pull up stakes like we did at Bagram? No, he wants to keep that thing, I bet. Anyway, I find that interesting. Anything else you guys want to say about Syria?
I mean, I think just for
No, go ahead.
I think just for the Biden legacy, I mean, it's brutal, right? I mean, he tried to get Israel to stop, and they've now gone after, Hezbollah and Hamas have been damaged. Now the Syrian government is toppled. For a guy who prides himself on, being the foreign affairs chairman for years and kind of being the master who is going to clean up the world from Donald Trump, it's a tough way to hand the baton back to Trump right now. He's been wrong more than he's been right in that region the last year.
I agree, Dan. I mean, Sean.
Sean, the ball's on the tee. Go ahead.
But I just think I go back to what we said a moment ago. I think Donald Trump wants to make sure that this is off his plate, or never gets on his plate, to probably be more exact, and that the more Biden can do. I'll be interested to see what they do today. John Kirby was out on some of the shows this morning, the national security spokesman / co-press secretary. I'll be interested to see what actions they take in the next 48 hours or so, because I think that's where this is going to matter. There was reports that HTS leaders were, I still don't understand who, but I'm obviously not read in enough, that are making calls to countries saying, hey, don't worry, we're in charge, we're good. I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
I think it strengthens Trump's hand in trying to make quick deals with Putin and Iran. And I predict, maybe, I'm not really predicting, I think he could make those off of this soon, which would be interesting. All right. Joe Biden and the economy. He's giving a speech at Brookings today. It seems to me to be, I can't imagine what metric of success his team thinks is going to be achieved.
This is, to
me, this is sad unless he overperforms my expectations. Go ahead, Sean. Say something with the word sad in it.
It is sad because he's going to try. This is going to be a revisionist history. He's going to talk about gas prices are falling. don't worry, the economy is not as bad as you think it is. It's on the upswing. Here's a bunch of government statistics that tell you, despite what you feel, things are much better.
Well,
I did a great job.
and here's how I did it. Here's
Right.
how
Here's how
Bidenomics works. I
is
told you from the start we were going to grow it from the bottom down up, not the top down, from the inside out, not the outside in. And as my grandma used to say, God love him, or whatever.
this is literally his attempt
It's
to
just so
rewrite.
misguided. It's just so, as my son would say, it's cringe. Dan.
Well, look, I think this is what presidents do before they leave office. They try to put the best spin, which
Yeah.
to some extent, I'm surprised he hasn't done more of this type of stuff as he gets ready to leave. Look, I think for Democrats and for Joe Biden, there is immense frustration on this issue. They are not wrong that they inherited an economy in really rough shape, right? Just COVID did that, whether it was Trump 2.0 or Joe Biden, things were bad, right? Joe Biden was there in 2009 when most Democrats think Obama did not do enough to get us out of the financial crisis. And so we had kind of 8 years of modest, tepid growth. And so they went big. And I think Biden very much believes that, in the fact that we are better than the rest of the world, we got out of it quicker, we're stronger. All of that said, right, to Sean's point, you can say all the statistics you want, but in people's guts, they don't feel like it's better. And inflation's been crushing, and they belittled it, or they tried to play it down. So I get it. They want to try to, accentuate things that they feel like they did well, reasons that history shouldn't be as harsh as it probably will be. But it does, appear like the stone's going to drop in the pond, or the tree's going to fall and no one's going to hear it here.
Let me put a shirt. Go ahead.
The uniqueness of this that I think is fascinating from a political standpoint, if you're Biden, when you ran for re-election, in theory, you would have made this case, right? And you kind of allowed somebody else to do it for you. And like anybody else, you never think that they did it as good as you could have. They didn't articulate the nuances of your policies and the results of. And so this is Biden saying, look, she went out there and tried to sell it. I don't think she did as good of a job as I could have. I'm going to go out there now and recap for everyone kind of what they missed.
By the way, Sean, this should have happened in real time. Every time they put a point on the board, Bill Clinton would have gone to swing states in 2021, in early 2022, saying, these are all the things I did. These are all the deliverables, town halls, media interviews. Instead, they were completely, the guy couldn't do it. He just physically could not perform.
Right.
And so you're right. It is just kind of comical that now
I put a sharper point on what I was trying to say before. He is not good at explaining a theory of the case about the economy. He never has been. He was chair of foreign relations and judiciary. He doesn't do the economy, really. He thinks he does. And so today he's going to go out and try again to do something he failed to do. He even failed to do when he ran for president and won. I will say a lesson, though, that I draw from this administration, which is something I've seen in every administration I've covered. Whether your president is good at explaining the economy or not, like Bill Clinton was good, Ronald Reagan was good, you need a commander-in-chief on the economy, because the president can't be the daily commander-in-chief. And that commander-in-chief needs to have credibility on Wall Street, credibility with CEOs, and ability to explain to real people the economy. Okay? Janet Yellen and the 2 or 3 people who've been head of the National Economic Council, as Grandma Biden would say, God love them, but they are not that. Janet Yellen is not that. She has been AWOL on, a public face on the economy the whole time. She wasn't chosen for that role. It's a huge mistake. And one of the things I think you're going to see with this incoming administration is they've got in Scott Bessent someone who is very comfortable talking to CEOs and Wall Street and the public about the economy. And Trump himself can do it, as well. But if you say, what were the failures of the Biden administration? They had no commander-in-chief on the economy. And particularly when you're coming out of a pandemic, particularly when you're dealing with rampant inflation, you need someone on TV every day saying, here's what we're doing. Here's what we've got going on. Here's how we're going to fix it. We got this under control. And the notion that Janet Yellen did that for 40 seconds over 4 years is bullocks. Sean.
But you think about it, I just mentioned Kirby. He goes out there on a daily basis.
He's great.
Press secretaries to the briefing, talks about national security, foreign policy. And to Dan's point, the one thing that people care about the most is their own wallet, their own well-being. How's their family doing? Can they pay the bills? I honestly, if you had said to me 2 seconds ago, quick quiz, who's the Treasury Secretary? I don't. I mean,
here's a tougher quiz. It's not been 4 years yet, so it's something short of 4 years. Name anything Janet Yellen has said memorable about the economy in 4 years.
Inflation is transitory.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
There you go.
The only thing you can remember is the stupid things.
Okay, who have been the head of the National Economic Council? Go.
Exactly.
Who has it been?
Dan,
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Some guy whose name I can't remember, who's very good, and what's her name, who's in the job now, but you can't name them, let alone anything memorable.
What was
they
it,
said.
Brian Deese?
Brian Deese. It was Brian Deese, and then what's her name's there now? I can't remember her name. My point is, you need a commander-in-chief on the economy, even when things are going well. You need somebody like Bob Rubin, who when they're on TV, people who care about the economy say, turn up the audio. That's Bob Rubin. I want to know what he's got to say because he knows a lot about the economy. Instead, Janet Yellen, inflation is transitory, the end.
Right.
Disaster. All right. Pete Hegseth, in the great words of Arthur Fonzarelli, I was rude. But I wasn't at the time because at the time he was dead. And I'm telling you, Trump thought he was dead. It wasn't like some fantasy or my sources tricking me or spinning me. He was dead. But he's been brought to life by an extraordinarily effective team of Sherpas who figured out a strategy. They basically good cop, bad cop with the senators. Good cop, we respect, advise, and consent. We want to hear you out, etc. Bad cop, if you cross President Trump on this nomination, you will be primaried and lose. Last night, once again, the nominee breaking the normal rules of advise and consent, where you don't do interviews until your confirmation hearings. Hegseth did another interview. He went on with Sean Hannity, and he talked about his vision, Donald Trump's vision of rooting woke out of the Pentagon. Let's go to the videotape.
Well, there's a lot to be done. First of all, you salute the commander-in-chief who got those 76 million votes and is going to chart the way. And I'll give him advice and counsel along the way. I'll just say what he told me. Return the Pentagon to the warfighters, Pete. Get in there and clean out all the social justice, politically correct garbage on top and get back to lethality, warfighting, accountability, meritocracy, and readiness. And guess what? 95% of the people in that building in the Pentagon and that wear the uniform, that's all they want to do anyway.
They've got MAGA fired up on this program. All of us, Sean, has been especially good at this, have deconstructed how they turned the message about this is not about Pete Hegseth's past. It's about the future of MAGA and the Pentagon. One of the issues that occurred yesterday after our program was he met again with Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst doesn't want to be the poster child of opposition. So even though she didn't endorse him yesterday, she put out a very clever statement about how she supports him in the process. She also basically can now have Christmas with some peace because she's being supportive and she's saying, let's get to the hearings. Those are in January. So her family won't be picketed by MAGA over the holidays. But there is one issue that came up, the question of women in combat, which was kind of addressed last night, also on Sean Hannity, roll videotape.
And I also want an opportunity here to clarify comments that have been misconstrued that I somehow don't support women in the military. Some of our greatest warriors, our best warriors out there are women who serve, raise their right hand to defend this country and love our nation, want to defend that flag, and they do it every single day around the globe. So I'm not presuming anything, but after President Trump asked me to be his Secretary of Defense, should I get the opportunity to do that, I look forward to being a secretary for all our warriors, men and women, for the amazing contributions they make in our military.
Sean M. Spicer, the M is for miffed. Explain the discrepancy there that is being kind of cleverly elided between women in combat versus women in the military.
Sleight of hand. Yeah, he said, I'm being attacked for women in the military, which is like, it was very good. Just don't get me wrong, because again,
explain the premise.
The comments that he made on the podcast were concerns that he had about women in combat roles, and then he said, I have no problem with women in the military, which is two different things, right? a big difference between women serving in combat roles, which is largely settled, minus a few small issues here and there with special operations, et cetera. And so he did a good job, I think, from a PR standpoint of making it seem like the comments were being misconstrued, and I fully support women and assuaging a lot of those issues. But again, I don't think that he's going to get away with that at the hearing. That will come up, and there'll be a lot of questions about combat roles specifically.
Presumably, Joni Ernst knows the difference.
Presumably she does, but I don't think she's going to have to take that hit either. I think you're going to have women on the Dem side bring it up first. But I will say that, just going back to the Joni Ernst thing, the one thing that benefited Pete, we talked about this last weekend, was a little thing called The Weekend. And when Joni Ernst went home to Iowa, that's where I think the MAGA, that she sort of heard, and I'm sure her office got calls, how dare you not support Pete Hegseth, and which really saw the change of tune. He meets with Murkowski today, Collins tomorrow. I think I have that right.
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And I think those, again, if he can pick off one of the two, and I think Collins more than Murkowski might be the one that I'd be looking at. I think if he can do that, because there's an assumption that those two were not going to be with him. But if he could pick off one or two or get positive comments out of one of the two, I think he's in good shape, really good shape.
Okay, stand by. We're going to get back to you on what you mean by good shape. Dan, what are your thoughts on all of this Hegsethia?
Yeah, I mean, somewhere Bill Clinton's very proud at the parsing of the words there. The one thing I found interesting was in that Hannity interview, he does say it's like the Democrats are trying to destroy me. Like, news alert, it is his own party that is doing this. Democrats have been pretty silent, and I give them credit, because by not popping their heads up much, it's not allowing others to turn this into Democrats versus Republicans. It is Republican on Republican right now that is the issue. But look, notwithstanding, I mean, this is going to go down in textbooks about how to, dig out of a hole and potentially get to victory. And I think, stopping the bleeding, stopping people from saying no, and then working them to yes, whether with kind of, stick or carrot, is proving very, successful. The guy that I'm curious about is the guy from Utah, the new senator, who I think has been quiet still, does not seem to fear the MAGA movement right now. I do think McConnell is kind of lurking out there, that he would be the fourth no and would not have a problem doing it. And so, to Sean's point, if he can break the Murkowski Collins kind of what I'll call like iron link, probably he survived. But that is like the one speed bump out there I still see, because I do not think Joni Ernst will be that fourth vote.
Mark, you commented on the tactics, and I think that it's important for people to understand the type of pressure applied is not all equal, right? It's like if there's a wound, you can either jam it and the blood keeps spurting, or you can apply pressure in a way. And how they've applied pressure has been brilliant, because you don't need to go over the top. It was sort of the gentle pressure that said, hey, just heads up, if you keep going, it's not going to end well for you. We're just giving you a preview of how this movie is going to end, right? That's a lot smarter of a tactic than coming in, full on. And that's where I think that they've done this well, because if you back a senator into a corner, it's a lot harder for them to get out if they feel like they publicly are being shamed and embarrassed.
Yep. All right. If you want to get into the conversation, please raise your hand. I will say this before we do a mandatory prediction about his chance of being confirmed. He can be defeated, and this is not like pure theoretical, without either Collins or Murkowski voting no. McConnell, Cox, Young, Tillis. So, and there's some others. So all I'm saying is, while it's clearly moved in a better direction, while I think it's unlikely, unless there's some big new investigative piece or some accuser comes on camera, and do not discount those two possibilities of things that could happen in January, December, January. But if those things don't happen in December, he's home free till January.
You also heard him say last night on that Hannity interview, I welcome the FBI investigation.
He does, but that's anonymous too.
Well, and what else are you going to say? Like, you
don't say anything. You don't welcome it. I think there's a difference between bring it on, and we're going through the process. That's
All
a
right.
little.
You know what, though, the one thing
Men-
is, Mark, that's interesting?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you think there's a decent chance still, not you, but like rhetorically speaking, one thinks there's a decent chance he's going to go down. If he is taken down right before Trump is inaugurated, that is not good media, politics, whatever. Like if you want, if he's going to go down now, then have the holidays, come back in January ready to go. If the goal is to get him to a hearing, you think there's some more stuff that maybe might come out. You think one of these accusers may go on the record, and you still think you have a math problem in the Senate. Boy, if I were the Trump people, I'd think long and hard about like Christmas Eve, he backs out.
And it could still happen, but it's not on that trajectory currently.
Yep.
I do wonder when the hearings will be. Are they early January, mid-January, whatever? All right. Mandatory prediction. 0 chance of being confirmed. 10, ontological certitude that he's become Secretary of Defense. Dan, what are Pete Hegseth's current chances?
4.
Oh, my goodness. Sean.
8.
The correct answer is 7. 7. Final topic. Put up that Donald Trump Truth Social post, please, mocking our neighbor to the north. Donald Trump has an underrated sense of humor. For example, it was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon. Sean, I'm all for breaking protocol. I'm all for Donald Trump's puckish sense of humor. But what is up with this?
Well, it harkens back to the comments you made in the Meet the Press interview, which is the way that these guys are treating us and their trade imbalance, the borders, et cetera. I mean, he said at some point they could just become a state. And I think he wants to remind Trudeau of that. I mean, it's mocking, it's funny, but it's also just an attempt.
But it's got a purpose. It's got a purpose, you're saying.
Just to be clear, Trudeau shot back at Trump yesterday and said, if he follows through on these 25% tariffs, we'll retaliate. And I think Trump was sort of going, really? You want to retaliate against us? We're the United States. You're the 51st state now.
Retaliate against this. Dan,
Yeah,
you find that funny, unseemly? What do you think of it?
He's picking on the weakest link in the chain. Like they're an easy
The Canadians?
target. Yeah, look, he is, and I say this with political respect. He is a bully who likes to belittle people to pump himself up. And
that sounds very respectful.
Right. And I think that Mexico cannot just turn off immigration and drugs, right? If they could, they would have done it, in the last 30 or 40 years. To say that there's a strong leader in Mexico who controls the government, well, I wouldn't want to bet my future on the president of Mexico, whoever he or she is, having that much of an iron grip. And at the same time, we haven't talked much about this, China is beginning to find ways to have their own shots across the bow. Our friends at NVIDIA are suddenly under investigation in China, and they're threatening to cut off one of their biggest supplies that they need to run their AI data centers, right? The number of companies that have begun to receive notices from the Chinese government that they too are under investigation. Needless to say, if all of this went through, it could hemorrhage our economy. So if you're Trump, you don't want to have to talk about what China is threatening to do. You probably don't trust Mexico. So Canada is the little sibling that you can just smack around, and there's very little, like Trudeau's not going to truly launch a trade war unless we do. So Trump can just act tough.
Yeah, but I think part of it comes back to
Dan,
Trump,
hold on.
Trudeau actually.
Dan, I've never seen you express such anti-Canadian and Mexican hostility. Sean.
But look, I go back to the fact this is Trudeau spoke out. If he had just gone to dinner, enjoyed the meatloaf,
behaved like the junior partner that he is.
Right.
I was
then
going to say, like, he shot back. Trump did.
The only reason that Trump did that is because Trudeau shot back. If he had kept his mouth shut and just said, thank you for the chocolate cake. It is delicious, by the way.
I would, it is, it's not as good as the steak and meatloaf, but it's very good.
Meatloaf
I would like to be,
fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I would like to be cloned and just sit and watch Canadian TV all day, because they must be freaking out over this. They're just being treated, not even like junior partners. They're being treated, I don't even know what, like the Canadian office. Governor Trudeau. It's so insulting. All right. Guess what, everybody? Now it's the time on Sprockets when we dance and when we take your questions. Doug Workman, welcome in. the most Dickensian named person of the two-way community.
Thank you very
Doug,
much, Mark. By the way,
it's early. It's early where you are, isn't it?
I know. I got up early just to watch the morning meeting. I
Tell
see.
folks where you live, Doug. Not everybody knows. I'm sorry to interrupt, but tell everybody where you live.
I'm in the People's Republic of California.
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, I see Game Changer behind behind Dan's on Dan's bookshelf, and I have to tell you, I found it on my bookshelf too.
Yeah, either of you got an autographed copy
You
or
need a
first
copy
edition?
of the briefing? What's going on?
I just found, I wanted to ask a question about Syria. And
Yes, sir.
What what that all means in terms of staying away from it. If I had a problem with Biden in the Middle East, it's not that he let Israel lose. He just wouldn't let Israel win. And winning for Israel entails, removing the threats to its existence. What do you guys think about what Trump is going to do with, in terms of ignoring Syria if it becomes a threat to Israel? Will he allow it to win? And will he allow it to win with Iran, which may include 30,000, pound bunker buster bombs, which are only in possession of the United States? So my question.
Well, I'll answer on the bombs. It's great to talk about using them, but it's just too risky. If you hit some nuclear target, you could create a generation-long health crisis in the region, and there's a reason why they haven't been used before. That having been said, I do believe that you're going to see it if it doesn't happen before Election Day, and if it does, we've talked about this. Trump will take credit for it. I do think you'll see a deal with Hamas for the release of the hostages, and I do believe you'll see a very concerted effort to get the Saudi discussions in terms of Abraham's Accord 2 back on track. So, and as I said earlier, I think in this program, I think you may see a deal with Iran. So I think Trump's going to be very aggressive in the region because he wants to build on the Abraham Accords. And I think empowering Netanyahu is not everybody's favorite course, but I think that's what he'll do. Sean, Dan.
What's going to be interesting to me regionally. So two things. One, I think you're right on Biden, right? Without going off down a rabbit hole, look what he's done to Ukraine. They've never given them the weapons to win. It's a joke that we want them to win and be successful. We don't arm them accordingly, right? So that's I think the premise of what you're asking is so true, because overall, this is the story of this administration, which is we want you to win, but we're just going to kind of say it and not give you the tools to do it. On Trump, I think that the X factor to me is the people who are around him. Mark mentioned the Abraham Accords and what happened. Think about it. You had David Friedman, ambassador to Israel, Jared Kushner, a lot of others who are really invested in that region personally. You've now got Mike Huckabee, who will be the ambassador to Israel. You don't have that same influence in the White House that Jared occupied. So I'm actually going to be interested to see who's in his ear on this kind of stuff.
Dan.
Yeah, look, it's a little rich for Republicans to talk about not getting enough weaponry to Ukraine when they objected to almost all weaponry to Ukraine for this battle. But look, to go to
Trump
Israel,
armed him. Trump gave more stuff to you. Anyway, I don't.
We can talk about the conditions of some of that. But look, I think for Israel, this is going to be a massive stain on Biden's legacy. And I think it probably kills him on the inside, because for 40 years, he thought he was like Mr. Israel and one of their best friends. And then domestic politics and his own potential reelection complicated this. And that's what it is. It was pure politics of trying to, keep Arab voters in his camp while not losing too many Jewish voters. And I think, Netanyahu ignored him. Netanyahu, it appears today, has been successful in trying to kind of, wear down their opponents and take them out. Where I think this is interesting for Trump is I think Trump will be as supportive as one can imagine a U.S. president could be towards arming Israel, except if Israel is still in a war a year from now and things are starting to go sideways or it's grinding into a war of attrition, there's terrorism in the region, it gets harder for us to just say, hey, good luck, guys. Like, you do you, we'll just send you some weapons. But that is a problem for him. Like, no U.S. president wants to be involved in a war. And that's when I think you live by Netanyahu, you die by Netanyahu. No U.S. president has ever controlled him. And I don't think Trump will be the first.
Yeah, but he'll unleash him, and he'll tell Bibi what he told him publicly during the campaign. Get it done
Get it done.
fast.
Okay, but
Get it done fast.
but Netanyahu has never defined what done is, and he has his own domestic politics to worry about. So
He wants to wipe out Hezbollah and Hamas. He wants to push back Iran, and he wants to build some more settlements.
Well, George W. Bush wanted to get rid of evil in the world. Like, you want to get rid of Hamas and Hezbollah, but another thing to do it. Like, maybe
Further along on the to-do list than they've ever been.
Sure, absolutely.
You forgot
Yeah.
stay
All
out
right.
of jail. You forgot stay out of jail because he's testifying today.
Yes, also stay out of jail. He'll pardon himself.
I'm sorry, which
Mr. Workman,
president were you talking about? No, I'm joking.
Mr. Workman, thank you for joining. We appreciate it. Happy to have you here. All right. Jeff, come on in. Tell folks where you are. What's on your mind, please?
Oh, I think you're muted, Jeff.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yay. My question is about legislative priorities. About a month ago, I heard a talking head on one of the business channels talking about how they might put off no tax on tips and no tax on overtime because they just didn't have the support in the Congress and such. But I would think they'd want to move it to the front in order to, lock in the support of the, the working class and, the folks, the base. And I just want your opinion on that. Two quick comments. Dan, in that great bookshelf, as a Missourian, I hope you have a Truman book back there somewhere. And Sean, I just got to say, go Army, beat Navy. Thank you.
We'll see. This is going to be an epic game this weekend, by the way.
It will. It will.
What's the spread in that game? What's the spread?
It doesn't matter.
All right, I'm looking it up.
Two great records going in. I mean, I don't think we've ever. It's been years since both teams were ranked nationally, but I mean, our Navy definitely has the edge because it's better.
Sean? What's your view on the tax bill?
So this is actually a really interesting fight that you're bringing up right now, as far as the reconciliation process. There's a big debate, one bill or two. The Trump team initially is supporting this two-step process where the tax bill would go second. It would be broader. I think this is really going to come down to nuance, who can sell this better as a tool, meaning whichever side you've got. Jason Smith, the Ways and Means chairman on the House side, saying, I don't want this Thune process. John Thune in the Senate saying, I want to do the big policy issues, energy border out of the gate, and then delay tax. Rightly so. And this kind of brings up your point, Jeff, that you delay the tax issue, it makes it a lot harder to get the support. You've got it's beyond the tax on tips. You've got this thing called SALT, which is state and local tax deductions, big in blue states, New Jersey, New York, California. And so it all comes down to what you can balance and what you can offset. So that it has to be, there's some deficit issues that have to get dealt with, at least on paper. And so there's one of the big things is they're thinking about repealing the Biden student loan issues. That gets you about, I think, $220 billion. So there's going to be a lot of discussions about what offsets how much and blah, blah, blah. And this is where then you've got to figure out which vehicle will move it. But I think the tax on tips and the tax on overtime are going to have to be in there because Trump's not going to just let it go away. He's it may not be as robust, meaning it may be to a certain level, like, hey, 5,000. I've always thought the devil in the detail is always what's tough on tax policy, because if I were an employee, I'd be like, great, pay me everything in tips now. Or all my pay is in overtime. So you're going to have everyone on Wall Street suddenly got paid in overtime. So the devil's going to be in the detail, but I think there's going to be some aspect of both in the reconciliation tax piece.
Yeah, I should have.
Navy
Dan, I'm
is
just
a 6.5.
curious, do you think Democrats can afford to not vote? To vote against no tax on tips, no tax on overtime?
Well, no, to be frank, and I should have answered Mark yesterday. What I would like for Christmas is the SALT to be put back in place on behalf of our family. Look, I ran government relations for years for H&R Block. I am well versed in the tax committees and the politics. To Sean's point, the implementation of this is going to be very, very hard because the problem is people will, reorient their compensation packages to make a lot of the pay overtime. And, most people don't pay taxes on tips right now. But if you truly got rid of this, right, it would be, it could get out of control. So I think, to Sean's point, Trump cannot afford to not have this in and try to fight for it. I can't imagine any Democrat would say no, like they'll all be for it.
Yeah, but Dan, don't you agree? I mean, it's the problem isn't those two issues. Nobody's going to vote against tax on tips and overtime. I mean,
Right.
those are those are pennies on the dollar.
By the way, Kamala Harris endorsed them. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke, but I won't. But I think there's going to be a broader, like the Democrats can come out and say, we're for all this, but these are tax breaks for the rich and we can't support that. We should have them in there. I mean, so the overall package will make the difference.
Yeah. And that's where I think that's exactly, is right. Is Democrats will be for stuff that helps the working class. And by the way, another thing Trump promised was being able to write off car loans. And I watched the Democrats in Michigan and, those auto states that will say, absolutely, we're for this. But again, how do you pay for all of this and what's your trade-off?
Navy is 6.5-point favorite in Saturday's big matchup. All right, Jeff, thank you for joining. Great questions. Much appreciated. Curtis, come on in. Tell folks where you are. What's on your mind, please? You're good.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about that last point. When somebody says that no Democrat will come out against no tax on tips, yes, it's a
doesn't mean they'll vote for the whole bill. They're just not going to be against the concept.
Right, and the concept is kind of flawed in the fact that a former governor of Minnesota, I can't remember his name,
Jesse
came out and
Ventura.
said, huh?
Jesse Ventura.
No, one of the other ones, Tim
Plenty.
Yeah, he came out and said, well, if you're not going to tax, tips on, front of house people, when do the janitors and the cooks and everybody start asking, just
why am I
pay me
paying
more?
taxes? Yeah.
So I kind of just want a response to that, and the fact that it's fair for people to want more money, but when other people are going to start being like, well, now I want I want
That's
all my
huge.
wages to be.
Yep. Curtis, you're absolutely right, Curtis.
Curtis, how do you define tips too? Again, having been in the minutia
Folks,
of
Dan
this
Ball
stuff,
here from Real
and a
America.
company
As
that
you
had
know,
to execute
OAN
this
or
every
One America
year,
News Network has always stood for
it's
free.
brutal. And the fights that'll occur and all the different industries that their lobbyists will try to get in there to define some of this stuff in the most kind of liberal way, lowercase L. This is why tax bills don't happen often. Big tax bills, big tax changes, because it is so complicated and you would think it's black and white, but it's not.
Well, look, I think there's two things. I think Curtis is bringing up a really good point. The devil's in the detail. That's what we're talking about. Like everybody in the world's going to suddenly say, I want to get tipped now too. And we all know that half of this is, restaurant workers, some of them get, you put it on your Visa bill, but a lot of times you pay in cash. I think for those people who've taken tips growing up, sometimes you park cars or you mow lawns or whatever, and no one's reporting that. Hope no one's from the IRS on the call here, but or at least I don't know what the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I think that that's why so I think to answer your question, Curtis, there's a big difference politically and reality. Politically, they'll structure something that will say, I check the box, right? No tax on tips for front of house workers that get tipped less than $250 in any given. I mean, they're going to make it so that it's a talking point.
In
So
a swing state that I won. Yeah, no.
Right. There's this is you're bringing up a great point, which is in every piece of legislation, the devil's in the detail, but 90% of it is so that a lawmaker can say, I voted yes on something, right? Yep. And I mean, there's so many of these tax things that when you look at, we gave a deduction for X, and you go in and read the fine print, and it says only for people who are left-handed, that are, have a odd numbered social security number, born on a Tuesday after dark. I mean, you basically rule out 80% of the people, but the lawmaker can go out and get reelected by saying, I voted hard for this tax deduction for X. So there's the political piece and there's the practical piece. And that's what I think you're getting at. And I think you're absolutely right. But I think part of the reason that we're talking about it is in much more political terms. What's really going to happen versus what does it practically mean?
But Curtis, let me ask you a question if I could.
Yeah.
Is that all right? How often have you known me to be wrong?
Not that much.
Not that often. Not that often.
No.
Curtis, brace yourself. Maybe if you're sitting in a chair with arms, hold both arms. Ready? Roll videotape. Boom.
Folks, Dan Ball here from Real America. As you know, OAN, or One America News Network, has always stood for free speech and an honest, free, fair, and transparent press. And I am so glad to announce that coming this January 2025, we are going to continue on with that messaging of free speech and bringing on a firebrand of a talk show host to our primetime lineup. May I announce Matt Gaetz and The Matt Gaetz Show coming next month to OAN. Hey, Matt.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. And I could not be more excited to join the One America News family. The best reporting, the best analysis, and the most in-depth coverage of the Trump administration is going to come from our team. I've got the sources, I've got the insights, and there is such a spirit of optimism to unlock the opportunity of America. There's no place that's going to cover it better than One America News. And I would suggest, if you're not in a place where you can access One America News on your normal television station, go get our app. Go get our One America News app. That's where you can watch my show at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Dan's going to be a great partner. We're going to have a lot of collaborations together, and we're going to have the must-see information so that you know what's going on with President Trump, with Congress, all around the country.
Looking forward to it. It's the Matt Gaetz Show coming January 2025 to OAN. We'll see you then, Matt.
9 p.m.
Curtis, there's two options. Either I was wrong again, and I owe Sean an eggnog, even though I almost never bet on things I cover, or that was AI. Those are the options. But it appears the show's going to be on, much to my amazement. Curtis, will you watch the Matt Gaetz program?
No.
All right, that was definitive.
Honestly, that's not technically true. I would probably watch it for oppositional.
Yeah, Curtis, if I said right now from a standing start, I want you to go watch, so go find a place you can watch OAN. What steps would you take?
I would take Google and look up OAN.
Yeah. Okay. Where do you think you can watch it? How do you get do you have like YouTube TV or anything?
Yep, that's.
Yeah, I don't think OAN is on YouTube TV.
No.
Well, no, but you can, YouTube TV, but you can watch it on YouTube.
YouTube. Did it stream live on YouTube for free?
There's streamers that.
Yeah. Curtis, here's my last question for you. Are you at all surprised that Matt Gaetz was almost Attorney General of the United States and now he'll be hosting a show on OAN? Does that surprise you at all?
Not really. There's been a lot of kind of ridiculous figures in the media for a minute now, and
you're talking about this show that you're on right now, or something else?
No, a lot of things.
Yeah.
I actually kind of appreciate the differentiation that some of us have here on the show sometimes. The first time I ever was on the show, like I talked about Senate campaigns and I got them right in the wrong way, in the fact that like I said, that there wasn't going to be too many cross point voter, or like cross ballot
Yeah.
voters.
Yeah.
I thought it would go in the Democrats fashion. It
Yeah.
obviously went in the
Went the
Republicans
other way.
fashion.
Yeah.
But like,
But you still posited
when
you still
somebody
posited the
asked
possibility
me
of ticket
about
splitting.
like Matt Gaetz, I'm like, I'm not that surprised in the fact that we have a lot of kind of weird, I don't know, Trump officials that, like, yes, he gets to do whatever he wants when he gets elected, but at the same time, like, realize like some of it's not normal.
That's
And
true. That's true. Curtis, thank you, man. Thank you for joining. We always love having you on.
Mark,
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I took the liberty of doing the Google.
Yeah.
You can watch OAN on its app, on Cloud TV. That's with a K, Cloud TV, GCI, or VidGo. Those are your three options.
Those are good options. Good options. Thank you for doing that research.
Although I will say,
Jeremy,
just in case we have anyone in Trinidad and Tobago, you can get it on TSTT in Port of Spain on channel 198.
according to one of my sources close to Matt Gaetz, that distribution point was the thing that got him to yes.
Latvia is also available. Latacom.
Jeremy, welcome in. Jeremy, has anyone given you a Christmas present yet this year? It's early, but has anyone? Not yet,
no,
right?
Not
Jeremy?
a present.
Jeremy, let me be the first. Merry Christmas. Roll 202, please.
Celebrate our blessings. Get some rest. Try and get some good food over the holidays. You know, if you're going to other people's house and they don't cook so well, bring your own good. Do what you gotta do to take care of yourself.
Jeremy, you're welcome. What's on your mind today,
Thank
Jeremy?
you. Okay, well, that will be a good segue. But I have two questions. The first one is about the cabinet. Everyone has been focusing on Pete Hegseth, but the craziest, or I should say, the nominee with the most baggage of all, more baggage than all the other nominees put together, RFK, has really been skating through, at least in the public discussion. And I want to know, does anyone see any chance that he goes down? Or is everyone going to be too exhausted dealing with everyone else? And plus the fact that a friend of mine, probably wants to remain nameless, jokes that everyone in America agrees with RFK on at least one thing. It's just the thing that it has a different thing that they agree with him on. And you can
That's brilliant.
The crazy beliefs diffuse through the population, but it's dangerous, all concentrated in one person.
Jeremy, tell your friend we're all stealing that line.
Okay.
Second question.
I'll definitely pass that along.
We're going to take them in reverse order, probably. Yeah. Well, let me ask your second question. Ask your second question. We'll handle them at the same time.
All right. Well, second question. Here's the bluntest question you've ever gotten. Does Kamala Harris have a drinking problem? And if so, when will we see public reporting about that?
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. No, just kidding. All right. Sean, you can handle both of those. And then Dan. In whatever order you wish. Jeremy, thank you for the question.
How about this? You know what? In the interest of time, I'll take the RFK one. Dan takes the. So, Jeremy, great question. I actually have a document that I've been keeping because it's fascinating. You say that. I was reading, I think this is Politico the other day. It talks about all of these points that RFK has made it. This is from Axios, because I'm going through the political story, but Axios bottom lines it in a different way. Like RFK Jr. or not, the Make America Healthy movement's focus on chronic disease gets an ugly truth. America isn't as healthy as other countries. Predictions say it'll get worse. For all of Kennedy's falsehood, a political spotlight on chronic disease could open the door to examining U.S. healthcare failings that don't always get a lot of attention. Then you had Frank Pallone, who is currently the ranking member on Commerce, write a letter to the FDA Thursday, Friday, asking to ban red dye. To your point, suddenly all these people are getting on board on the Make America Healthy Great train, maybe for different reasons, but it's giving them different points to say, I don't agree with RFK on this, but he's got something here on this, on chronic disease. He's got something on red dyes, on processed foods. And I think that's what's keeping this together, is that there's a recognition that we aren't getting healthy. There was a big thing the other day on American life expectancy. We're going in the wrong direction vis-a-vis other countries, right? And I think that at the very least, we're starting to ask questions that have been off limits for a while. Like, why are we doing all this? Why are there conflicts of interest at the CDC and the NIH? And I think the way you framed it is exactly right, which is enough people are saying, I don't agree with them on everything. But it was fascinating. I had lunch yesterday with a group of pro-life people. And everybody was scratching their head saying, I can't believe there's not more opposition to this guy, considering how, from the conservative movement, this is something. I mean, HHS, yes, it does control CDC and NIH and all these issues that I just brought up. But for a lot of people who believe in life, and HHS is very, very important on this. And the lack of accountability that we've held him to on those issues, and saying, okay, I get it. We just need to make sure you're buying into Donald Trump.
Son, will he be confirmed?
I will. He will. He will be confirmed.
He will. Okay.
But I think it's a fascinating study.
Yes. Do you want to address the second question?
I actually think that Jeremy, for all of the chat, I mean, Mark brought this up a couple times. That was Mark brought up the concern, or the rumors about Donald Trump. That was there are two rumors about Kamala Harris, both of a personal nature. Neither one of them broke through. And I am amazed about that. And I think because she has lost, unless she runs again, and if she were to run again, this is where a lot of things come out in a primary, where your opponents throw mud at you. They back-channel opposition research. I have a feeling that both of those issues will come out if she were to run again for either governor of California or for president.
Dan.
No. Kamala Harris does not have, to my knowledge, and to people around her that I know, some of whom are spent 18 hours a day around her. No, she does not have a drinking problem. And I don't even remember RFK. If he goes down, it's going to be not because of Democrats. It's going to be because of Republicans, and I think it'll be on two issues. What does he say on abortion? And what does he say on Obamacare? And at the end of the day, he is, still left-leaning. He is a member of the Kennedy family. I would be, that is going to be hard for him, because he does not want to take apart healthcare that his Uncle Teddy played a huge role in getting done. And he sure as heck isn't going to want to be seen as the tip of the spear against abortion. So I think that's where you could get some Republicans. And I don't know if Trump, how much does MAGA dig in to defend a guy who won't go after those two things? I think my bet is he'll get at least 5 Democrats that will vote for him.
Yeah.
Jeremy, thank you for the questions. I think he'll be confirmed. And all I can say on your second point is, I've never seen Kamala Harris have trouble drinking. Get it? All right, Jeremy, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. All right, late breaking news from Jake Sherman. Sean, who's Jake Sherman?
Jake Sherman is the head of Punch Bowl. He used to be the author of Playbook. By the way, real interesting, we talked about committee chairs yesterday. You saw Brian Mast become the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, and in their reporting said that that there was no way that Brian Mast was the dark horse and that the favorite. Anyway.
Turned out they were slightly off on that one. All right. According to Jake Sherman, the House Republican retreat will be January 27 to 29 at Doral in Miami.
Are we doing a live show there that week? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's.
The funny thing is, just to give people context how weird that is, I was a member of staffer on House leadership. We went to the Greenbrier, Baltimore, the Homestead.
The MGM has become popular out in,
but like everything's always within driving distance.
Yes, not this time. Now it's within driving distance of Donald Trump's home. There have been at least 2 tweets from Matt Gaetz in the last 4 minutes regarding his new assignment. So he's pumped up. Thank you for watching. Tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern time, I'll be back. An all new episode of Two Way Tonight. Our guests, well, you have to tune in to see. You won't want to miss it. And the 3 of us will be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time for a little bit of a program that we call the morning meeting. Gentlemen,
have you gotten an ugly sweater for Friday yet?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Working on it. Everybody enjoy your day. Thank you for being with us. Thanks to everybody who asked great questions. And I will see you in, I'm bad at math. How much is that? 6, 7, 8. 8 hours. See everybody in 8 hours. Get a nap in.
Dan deals with the taxes.
Dan has an abacus. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.